Hey, Ben. I'm so glad you're here with me today and that you've joined the Restory team recently. Has it been like only two weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks. It's been drinking from a fire hose, but it's been great.
I can
Everybody's super supportive and everybody speaks the same language, whether they're meaning to or not. And not just because we're all like coaches and counselors or whatever, but everybody has this similar kind of a vibe that everybody is coming together with, kind of like Celtic knot work. We all work ourselves together to be able to make this really beautiful picture. It's really cool.
It's really cool. And I feel like that's what gives us something different, right? That there is so much collaboration and a like-mindedness, even
Mm,
with our differences and our different specialties, that we can come together and do this good work as
yeah,
a
for sure.
team. Yeah. Well, we're so excited you're here. And I'm just getting to know you. We just had a little conversation right before you popped on. And I've heard probably 3 or 4 times from you something about Renaissance festivals.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Tell
Yeah.
me what you love about them, how often you attend.
Yeah, not as often as I used to, only because when you're out there as a performer, God bless all of you performers that are doing the Renaissance Festival. I know your pain. Whether it's down in Texas, or whether it's out in Florida, whether it's out in California or Pennsylvania or here in Colorado, you have people in the modern United States that are trekking up and down either mountains or across cow pastures or whatever it is, usually in some very heavy, heavy fabric, right? And this is usually in the dog days of summer, especially if you're at over a mile high, like it is here in Colorado. The effects of being closer to the sun, less atmosphere, dehydration, all of this stuff sets in. And you really have to have this kind of grizzled entertainer mindset to be able to continue doing it. And a lot of them do. And they're real examples for what it means to be like not mastered by your art, but like just in love with the art that you're doing. Like I said, I don't go as often as I used to, and that's just because life, has seasons for everybody. And I think one of the seasons for me in being a part of the Renaissance Festival on the road and also, here locally at home was to be able to help figure out what it is that I had as far as like the character or self concept of who I wanted to be, and using that as a stark contrast of who I really was. And that was I think the key to really opening up all of the unpacking that I did over the years, it was at the end of my like deconstruction reconstruction phase, and we can get into that later. But you got to live this in the Renaissance Festival, this kind of epic life, right? Like it's the only thing that I think a civilian is going to be able to really have as far as like, you fighting that you're doing the stage combat fights in the street, like two swords and going through and doing routines with a fight partner. And you're having these raucous, gregarious, moments where you're involved in this much bigger story than you are. You're just one character, but everybody is kind of on the same page and working towards something new. And yeah, you're living this grand life of some mystery and some intrigue and a lot of adventure. And you're seeing reflections of who you really want to be contained within that. I hope to be able to go back, more frequently than I do now, but it's between grad school, writing, and doing, just this work and work with other organizations. Unfortunately, it's just something that gets really sucked up, as far as time goes. So one day, one day I'll be able to go back.
And so you were not just a participant, you were an entertainer at
Yeah,
the Renaissance
traveling
Festival.
entertainer. I've been a swordsman, like a sword fighter for hire. Before that, even when I was a kid, I was a gunfighter at a Wild West show up in Wyoming. So yeah, it's always just kind of been a thing. But yeah, I was on the road with Renaissance festivals as a paid entertainer, acting and singing for my supper. It was quite the time.
Well, and I love that you were talking about, there's something about the performing, the acting, getting into the roles that helps you uncover like who you really are too.
Mm.
As there's like some creativity and play in the leaning into a character, like what actually resonates with me. Does that feel true to you?
Yeah,
Kind of what
yeah,
you were referring to?
and that can be both healthy and not healthy,
Yeah,
just
I
depending on
can
how far you want to take it. Because when you're invested in this character, this person that you are becoming for a very short amount of time, and doing these wonderful things, like being able to have a crowd of 1,000 people just doing this like call and response kind of a performance where you're trying to get them stirred up as if it's the Roman Colosseum, and they're going along with it. That's cool. It's like conducting a symphony of people, and they're playing right along with it. Everybody's playing off of the same score, right? Everybody's following the same script, even though nobody knows what the next word is going to be. It's so fun. It's so cool. But at the same time, there can be, without a really core, true sense of this is who I am in the eyes of the God who made me, that character can have this unhealthy bleed effect into the real world. And you end up referring to yourself by the nickname of your character or by, some other distinction for the character. And that can have some real problems when it comes to like social structures or social engagement, even if that is what's going on with everybody at the time. And that's the agreed rules of the game. So yeah, you learn a lot about healthy social interaction by proxy, by being a part of those kind
yeah.
of crowds.
I mean, I'm hearing that it has the potential anyway to help you find yourself, and it also has the potential to lose yourself.
Oh yeah. Very well said. Very
So
well said.
the ways that you have kept grounded or refound yourself in the midst of that is
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Well, I am curious, just as an intern going through all the hard work of grad school, and now you're here at Restory. Why'd you get into this work? I know you're probably getting asked that a lot, but I'd love to hear more.
Yeah. So it actually does kind of stem from my days in Renaissance Festival were really coming to an end. I had just gone through the death of my father and his mother, so there was still a lot of consequential fallout that was coming from that. And I had this realization, like I was talking about, that there was this missing piece somewhere in here, and there was the gravity of reality that was kind of setting in, and without that inner architecture actually built up, things were starting to kind of cave in. And one of the pastors for the local church network, multi-campus megachurch, he found me one morning and he asked me, "Hey, how are you doing?" And I answered him honestly, or at least as honest as I felt like being at the time. And he pointed me toward this organization that puts on emotional, I guess not emotional intelligence intensives, for lack of a better term. Shout out the Crucible Project. I've been working with them for on and off for the last like 4 or 5 years, and they have this wonderful method, this layout, this formula for a weekend where guys get to encounter this thing. And whatever it was for me, it was this lack of inner identity, this lack of inner strength, connection with who I was in the eyes of, the God that made me. And being able to look at that, name it, encounter it, and then do something about it. And so from that point forward, I just fell in love with the practice of setting men free from whatever it is that is haunting them in the shadows, whatever's, kind of hanging out in the periphery. And so I started digesting things, like basically everything by John Eldridge. I don't think there's a single book of his that I don't own. And, through him also, stuff by, our friend Chris Bruno, and by just all kinds of authors. I'm looking at the shelf of everybody that I have here in front of me. Batterson, Dan Allender, the list goes on. And it was just this gradual awakening to not only, hey, this is who I have the possibility of being, but this is the direction that I was initially meant to be like traveling down from the very beginning. So in figuring that out, I came into the network of a bunch of guys who were on the same page, encouraging me to be able to continue to sharpen myself and be more like intentional about figuring out what's going on and all of the big questions. And through that, I found my way to CCU, and here we are.
And so, as as you're at CCU and Crucible Project and starting to explore your own story, you're walking with other men and exploring theirs.
Yeah.
And I know you've said it was sort of this like epiphany, or not epiphany, but a realization that men are stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, there's Eldridge puts it as, the question that haunts every man, and it's true. The question is different for every man. It'll take on varying themes or, of shades and tones, but at the core there's something that is going to be, I guess, central to like identity, right? And usually it's some form of the question like, do I have what it takes to make it in this world? And at a certain point, usually we get the answer to that question. In the best of times, it's going to be from, somebody that has any kind of masculine influence into our life and is going to say, yes, you've got it. You can do this. I believe in you, which is not the common answer that people usually get. And then from that can come a whole stream of unintended consequences, right? Or intended consequences. There is such a thing as trauma, and unfortunately, there is such a thing as abuse. So these are things that can happen. And through that, you have guys that will come and they will have all kinds of issues about how do I process anger? How do I process sadness? How do I process grief? How do I recognize when grief is really what I'm aiming for, not sadness or anger or, whatever it else that is that they're having to kind of work with and struggle with. So that way of being able to chart or to make a map, for the topography of the soul and to understand what's going on in here and how that corresponds to what's going on in here. What does the Bible have to say about these things? Yeah, it is a vast and complex topic, and it has transformed many, many men in seeing them come and deal with the question or maybe even just learn how to phrase that question and then be able to be set free from whatever it is that was haunting them, chaining them down, just making all of their emotions and all of their inner frustrations just come out sideways all over the people that were near them. And they didn't understand, why do I keep doing this thing that I don't want to do, right? It's Paul writing, I do the thing I don't want to do, not the thing that I want to do.
React,
Mm.
that is a reacting. We are taking action over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, that's true.
wondering why we're getting stuck in that rut, right? It's almost like a divot or a default.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to the frustration of that, I don't want to do this, but it's just so familiar. It's so normalized.
Yep. And there's a benefit to doing it, right? It could be maybe a very small benefit compared to the consequences of it, but there's a reason why people can't give it up, right? Or there's a reason why they can't readily make a choice to do something else. And you said rut. I mean, that's the wearing down that rut or wearing down those paths. I mean, there's a reason why I really love practical neuroscience, right? Being able to use what we understand about this God-given invention, the brain, and how we can use that to be able to help the brain at the same time, right? You can use the habit forming matrix and the habit forming system to be able to help with attention span in, after certain like training and actually and understanding how those things work. So it's interesting to see how with the God-given blessing of neuroplasticity, we can change those ruts. We can chart new courses. We can connect new synapses, and we can make those synapses a lot stronger versus the ones that we are trying to get rid of, which will with time eventually go away. It's a fascinating topic. I love listening to a lot of the podcasts on Andrew Huberman, chiefly among them. I won't
Oh,
pretend to
love.
understand everything, but he's good about being able to make everything comprehensible for a knuckle dragger type like me.
Yeah, he helps it make sense. He really does. Yeah, I often think about it as, this neural pathway that we have in our brains is they have served us, right? Those ruts and what has felt familiar and normalized has served us or protected us in some way.
Mm-hmm.
But then as you're referring to getting stuck, at some point it's not serving anymore. And it could even be creating harm. And so to be scaling back and form the new neural pathways by the grace of God, He made us with neuroplasticity that we're able to rewire and reform. And there's risk there, right?
For sure.
Um, I it makes me wonder a little bit if you're up for sharing most of what we do and sort of our specialties and what we feel passionate about are coming from a place where we have been ourselves.
Mm.
And so I'm wondering about your stuck places and those
Yeah.
ruts for you,
Yeah.
and what was it like to start scaling back and taking the risk to form a new one?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the big question was, am I capable of being an agent of change for good in the world? There are parts of of my story that spoke directly against that. That it was times when, as a small child, you have authority figures, and I am, to be crystal clear, I am not talking about my parents. I'm talking about other caregivers, because naturally this is going to work its way to my mother, and
Mm.
I don't want her to be thinking that I'm talking about her. There were caregivers, and there were those that were in authority and had like influence over me over time that had abused that trust. And because of that, me considering myself to be worthy of actual healthy attention, that was something that I had to be able to kind of work back through. To be loved by God, and to be able to stand in the light of who God sees when he sees me, and to know who that person is, as opposed to this second or third or fourth order story that I've built up for myself, right? So who this character is, that is defined by faults and defined by all of the things that have gone wrong, could be, which I think is the most careful part of it, could be fundamentally different than who I am in the eyes of the God who made me. And for everybody that has ever gone through the alchemical transformation between this person and this person, it requires an unquantifiable degree of courage to be able to make the choice to just hope that these two people could be different. And so being able to maybe go back and rechart that course, or to maybe go back and re-examine stories and to see, okay, well, that I can see where those effects, what those effects were downstream. And I can see how the thing that happened started to have me crawl inside myself, as opposed to really stepping out and living boldly as God would want me to live. And so, yeah, it's really, if I want to reflect on all the work that I've done, it all kind of points to that from a variety of angles and approaches. It's being able to understand that God made a very unique and brave and capable individual, and that this world, which unfortunately is marked by being a fallen and sinful world, will do everything that it can to stomp out goodness at every opportunity. Truth and goodness and beauty, this world cannot abide. And that's the consequence, is that you get people who then have to re-examine and reimagine.
How did that awareness give you the courage?
How did that give me the courage? Yeah, I think that I think I want to differ on terminology just very briefly on that. I don't think it gave me really anything that I didn't already have, because God gave it to me. It's just something that I either hadn't unlocked, or I had forgotten, or I'd maybe put it in a box and put that box away. And I didn't want to acknowledge that it was there, because it was so out of sync with the rest of who I felt like I was. And so really, it's kind of like, over the course of time, at the very beginning of my life, God gave me this beautiful mansion to be able to explore, right? This big estate house. And, there was everything that you could ask for, right? Like an industrial kitchen, marble, brass, a fine exotic hardwoods, everything that you could ask for, beautifully laid out. And it was for me to go and explore and to be able to become familiar with. And over time, using like the grand dining room as like an archery range, right? That's not what dining rooms are for, but that's what I thought it should be used for. And so that's what it turned into. There were parts of the estate that were maybe too big, too vast. And so putting up plywood over some of those doors and some of those hallways because I didn't want to be bothered with what might be down there. Maybe I'll come back to it later. Maybe not. I don't know. And over time, enough of those wings and enough of those rooms got either destroyed or just shut off because I didn't understand what may be down that road or down that hallway at that time. Eventually, you're left with staying in a broom closet and shuffling over boxes to microwave burritos, in the kitchen and hoping that you don't blow a fuse, right? Well, then suddenly a knock comes at the door one day, and it's the guy who built the house. And he says, "Hey, I want to help you remember what these rooms are actually there for. And at your own speed, I want to help you bring this house back to life." And that's the process, or I guess that's the game that he and I have been playing ever since. It was God gave these gifts, these blessings, these abilities. He put them in my character. If we were talking about the core of who Ben is, he put those there at the beginning. And it was just a matter of coming back and saying, "Hey, remember this? Now we're going to do something with that."
I mean, it sounds like you're describing the Imago Dei, how you are an image bearer first and foremost.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Like when you think, even going back to Paul, like the true self nature. I like to describe it as your core glory, like underneath it all, right? That it's already there. And as you're describing that, your courage was already there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was just a room that hadn't been gone into and got sort of disheveled and the dust built up.
Yeah. I mean, or in some cases, with some folks, maybe it's not going to register, of just putting plywood up. Maybe something happens and it's more akin to, I am going to frame out the wall. I'm going to put drywall up and paint over the drywall and furniture in front of the wall. I'm going to do everything in my power to forget that room or that wing exists, because I just can't go down that hallway. I just can't open that door ever again. And I know where you're coming from.
Yeah. And also, just because we're all trauma informed in this space, that trauma also has the potential to do that.
Oh yeah.
To lock down the rooms, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I often describe it as like the exiling of these parts of us, right? Like,
yeah,
parts of us have been either exiled or going back to scripture, the lost, stolen, killed, destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of the work, right, is to come alongside and go reclaim, understand why some of those rooms have been boarded up and what it looks like to start exploring, right?
Yeah. And to sometimes open up some of those doors, and to when you look in the mirror that's in that room, you don't see current you, right? You don't see 2025 you. You see 1985, 86 you, or the you of wherever you were and whatever you were doing. It's not so much a mirror so much as it is an LCD screen that is giving you the exact memory of who you were at that time. And automatically you're living as if that's the case still. The rest of the world could have gone by. You could change in every other aspect with every other facet of who you are. But the minute that you go in that room, immediately you're back to that one time, that one moment.
Yeah, I'm almost envisioning even myself as you're describing. You paint beautiful pictures, by the way.
Thanks.
But I can see myself, at certain ages and being locked in a room and needing to be cared for and tended to, right? So
thanks for sharing.
And just knowing enough about you already and spending time with you, even today, I just know that you're going to be a safe companion to go into those rooms with. For any man that feels stuck or is having the dread and the burnout and the can't get out of this rut, right? To go explore.
Yeah. Whether it's, safety that's required or whether it's just security, just the express understanding that outside of certain circumstances, confidentiality, or, threat to harm situations, what comes into the office and what comes out on the couch, that's it. That's us. We're dealing with that. There's such a stigma about being able to go and to talk and to process, and AI certainly is not making that any easier, because people are turning left, right, and center to Grok and to ChatGPT and trying to use that as a analog for real therapy, which just I'm scratching my head over.
Right. When we actually need real life humans.
Yeah.
Who've had the real life experiences, and
Yeah.
and can provide an empathetic witness because you bear witness to the rut
Mm-hmm.
and what it feels like and looks like to come out and form a new pathway and to get into those rooms. I can almost imagine you, figuratively anyway, with your sword, right?
Yeah.
Going through, as the sacred companion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or, I'll pass out swords left, right, and center. One of my favorite movies is Excalibur from the 80s, which the mullets are just legendary. Those things will never die.
Can we bring that back?
I mean, well, it's going to be helpful for some people. I won't say that it's going to be helpful for everybody, but here we are. And
Speaking for French.
yeah, exactly. Right. I remember the moment where it's Arthur, who doesn't even know who he is, right? He's growing up as this like stable hand page boy who thinks his name is Wart, of all things, for gosh sakes. And he's taken by Merlin, who you don't know it's Merlin. Anybody that's watching the movie is like, oh, okay, clearly this little goblin child thing that stole the sword that Arthur is after. Okay, right, that's Merlin. All right. And he runs off into the forest to be able to lead Arthur along, to lead him to Excalibur, right? And so if I can do anything in this world and anything in this work, it's to lead each one of these men who are King Arthur in their own right to their own Excalibur, so that way they can go and rule their kingdom justly, mercifully, lawfully, with a sense of noble purpose and valiant, nature in their heart. At the end of the day, that's good enough for me.
So good. I feel like it would be an honor for any man to be able to sit with you in that way and go discover that. Ben, thank you for time today. Just getting to know you more. Anybody that's listening is wanting to get in touch with you. What do they do?
Yeah, head on over to restory.life. You'll be able to see the profiles that we have there, and then reach out. We'll connect and we'll put together next steps. I'm looking forward to working with anybody that needs it or anybody that wants it.
Bring your sword.